Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, August 18th, 2017, the WNW 297. A little bit of a different weekly news wrap up. I want to go back into history and kind of pull some dots together for you, and not just do stories and headlines. And it starts here, and this is going to be a bizarre story, but honest, I'll pay it off. Here's my local newspaper, Greensboro News and Record. Council sorry for city's role. City's role in what? In November of 1979, the Klan Nazis came to Greensboro for a protest. Well, a counter-protest was going to happen against them, and that was the Communist Workers' Party, the CWP. And, in this counter-protest, 5 people were murdered on the Communist Workers' Party side, and 10 people were shot. The Klan and Nazi members were charged and were acquitted in federal court. How did that happen? So this story talks about why they're sorry and the city's role, which I think is ridiculous. And that the Klan had the responsibility, but the Communist Workers' Party shared some responsibility, but a lot less than the Klan. What? How does the Klan murder 5 people and wound 10 and get acquitted? Well, let me tell you what they left out of the story, because I'm familiar with it. I lived in Greensboro, worked at the TV station here, not back in 79, years later, but I'm still very familiar with the story. It was a huge story even 5 years later at WFMI where I worked. Let me tell you what they left out of the story. What they left out of the story is the Communist Worker Party people brought guns to the counter-protest. Some people say they shot first, but it doesn't make any difference. When they brought guns, boom, you're not going to have a peaceful protest. And obviously they didn't. And that's how the Klan and the Nazis shot 5 people and wounded 10 and got acquitted of all federal criminal charges. They left that out of the story. When I called up the newspaper and said, hey, listen, your reporter's an idiot, and I probably shouldn't have said that. And I talked to the editor. He said, well, you call my reporter an idiot. Well, you know what? Better yet. There's a couple of different conversations. I'm going to condense them. Better yet, I feel like the editorial staff let down the reader, because what this story said was the city was sorry about its participation, which the police told the CWP, the Communist Workers' Party, not to bring guns to the protest they did anyway. It was a disaster, just like the police thought it would be. But they made it out like the Klan Nazis, which are repugnant people, just stood in the street and murdered people and got acquitted of all charges. I said, well, you left out a very important fact. No, it's your opinion. No. How could they get acquitted of all charges, murdering 5 and wounding 10, if you don't put in the fact that the Communist Workers' Party brought guns in 1979, November of 79, to the counter rally, which was really just a counterattack? They're doing this now because of Charlottesville. Both sides were to blame for this. Oh yeah, the Klan had more guns and they were better shots and they were better at using them. But both sides brought guns to what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. Both sides. The same thing with Charlottesville. I mean, a fair arbiter of the facts and the truth would say both sides are to blame for what happened in Charlottesville. And, here we have the Mercury News in Charlottesville. They did a great job. I'm going to put a bunch of links of some of the stuff that I'm using for supporting. They did like 60 or 70 pictures. I just pulled up a few. But this is the Charlottesville, the Mercury News of Charlottesville, and their video montage of this. Here's that dreadful person at the moment. They're backing over people, which was horrible. 1 dead, 19 or 20 injured in all this. Here's the aftermath. Horrible, repugnant people would do this to protesters, counter-protesting you. Here we have the white nationalists, a KKK or Nazi, whatever, whacking somebody in the head with a bat here. One of the counter-protesters. Here you have the white nationalists or KKK, Nazis, whatever, heavily armed. Thank goodness nobody was shot. Not a single shot was fired. And this is, again, all pictures of the Mercury News. Here are both sides going at it. You didn't see much of this. Both sides whacking each other and going at it. You didn't see much of that. All you saw was the aftermath and people crying, and you didn't see much of that. You didn't see the other side here where, people on the Antifa, had sticks and helmets and clubs and, just like the other side had sticks and shields and helmets and clubs. Here they are just both going at it. Both sides. I mean, when you come to a peaceful protest and you see people with sticks and shields and masks and clubs and helmets and bottles of urine to throw on the other side, that was Antifa. When you see things like that, you should run. That is not going to turn out peaceful, and it didn't. And I don't think it was meant to. I'll get to more of that in just a minute. Here's what you didn't also see in the mainstream press on NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN. It was just the evil Nazis and the evil Klan. They are evil. But so is Antifa. They are paid protests. Some of them, at any rate, are paid protests. And I'll talk about more of that in a minute. But paid protesters, armed opposition. And here we have Antifa, and here we have the counter protest with masks and bats and fists in the air and masks and clubs and shields and reportedly bottles of urine and somebody said bleach or acid or something like that to throw on people, pepper spray. Does this look like this is going to be a peaceful outcome to a counter protest? Of course not. This is also from the Mercury News. Here's a guy lit up a aerosol can to spray fire on one of these white nationalists. Hey, just because the other side is repugnant doesn't allow you to be repugnant too. Just because the other side is a bunch of weasels doesn't mean that you could be a weasel too. Here's also another thing that you didn't get any of this in the ABC, NBC, CNN. Just a white nationalist. The Nazis are repugnant, violent people. Yeah, sure they are, but so are these people. So is Antifa. And, Black lives don't matter. They don't matter because they don't matter in Chicago. They just matter if they can make hay with Whitey. But here we have, oddly enough, one of the counter-protesters, and Antifa, whatever, throwing a box that holds the Mercury News, throwing it at somebody and destroying property or whatever. So Trump was totally correct in his original statement. I think he said, listen, we shouldn't have any violence on either side, and we are all Americans. We believe in one God. We stand under one flag. We pray to one God. We all ought to come together. I thought that was great, very presidential, but it wasn't good enough. Nothing was ever going to be good enough to the ultra-left liberal who are out of ideas and whose issues are failing, like the Trump collusion story that even the nation says is not a story and didn't happen. The ultra-left liberal nation says they don't think there's any Trump collusion. And incidentally, have you seen a lot of that story here lately? Of course not. Because it's a non-story. We've been over a year with this. We got nothing. And the other thing, here the only crime, the only evidence of any crime, the only the thing that you could point to is, okay, what's the one piece of evidence? Well, that would be the DNC, the Democratic National Committee servers that was allegedly hacked by the Russians and colluded with Donald Trump. Why didn't the FBI and Homeland Security go get those servers? Why hasn't Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor extraordinaire, gone and gotten those servers? The one piece of evidence in this whole actual evidence in this whole Russian hacking story, Mueller's ignoring. Mr. Dedicated FBI professional investigator. The one only piece of actual physical evidence the DNC servers, to my knowledge, Mueller hasn't touched. I think what he's going to find out is they've been erased or bleach bitted or taken, a diesel, a D9 cat and ran over with or whatever, taken hammers to, or they lost them, or maybe they'll be intact and we'll find out actually, like the nation said, that they think it was an inside source that was mad that Bernie Sanders was cheated in the primaries and they were going to make Hillary pay. That was what the nation basically said. I'm boiling it down for you. The only piece of evidence is being ignored by all the FBI and Mueller and all these people, just like they ignored all the crimes of Hillary Clinton. You know, multiple private servers, in my opinion, that was not an opinion, that's a fact. Unprotected servers, that's another fact, in my opinion, to take treasonous bribes in the form of donations to her global charity fraud. After all, after $145 million in donations to the Clinton Foundation, a fifth of our uranium production ended up in Russian hands. At about the same time, former President Bill Clinton doubled his speaking fees in Russia. Talk about collusion. Talk about obstruction of justice. Talk about destroying 33,000 emails that were under subpoena that Hillary Clinton was required to return to the State Department. She was required to not have unprotected servers with highly classified information. That's all happened. That all happened. That's ignored. But the phony Russian collusion story, because we want to get rid of Trump, oh, all hands on deck for that one. Well, now that one's not going very well. So now they got a new meme, a new theme, a new idea, and it comes with Donald Trump's a racist, and oh, hey, all those founding fathers are racist too. Let's tear down all the Confederate statues. Let's tear them all down. Let's tear down all the statues of anybody, burn down the homes, burn down the statues of anybody who ever had slaves. You know, like Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, and what's going on in Chicago right now with Rahm, the Godfather Emmanuel, is that, there's a black preacher up there who wants to tear down a statue of George Washington. In Baltimore, they tore down any Confederate statues overnight. I guess we're going to do, take a wrecking ball to the Washington Monument or burn down Monticello or tear down the Jefferson Memorial, but that's what they want to do. And why they want to do that is they want to go to the destruction of your civil rights because, those founding fathers were racist and we don't need that Constitution. You don't need rights. Remember, I told you about Hillary Clinton, which is the scariest thing she said that just got washed over. She went on with her buddy Chris Wallace, and she sat there and told him, he sat there like a bug on a table and didn't say anything about it. I think there are limits to the Second Amendment. And I think there are limits to the First Amendment. Oh, yeah, they want to make hate speech not protected under the First Amendment of the Constitution. Here's my story. I've said this before, but I'll say it again about the First Amendment. So, the Greensboro has this, this changing of history where they didn't say the other side had guns, and there was a blame on both sides. That's how all the Klan and Nazis were acquitted. Because basically they went into court, whether true or not, they went into court and said, we were just protecting ourselves with other people that came to guns to our march. And they were threatening us, and they shot at us. So we fired back. That's what they, that worked. They were acquitted. But it's like the book in 1984, with all this tearing down of all these monuments and all this tearing down. And, if you can control the narrative and you can rewrite the past and that's what all the book burning was with the Nazis after all. We only want our narrative. We only want our thoughts. We want to tell you this, and you're going to like it. You're going to like men in little girls in restrooms with grown men. You're gonna like the whole transgender thing. If you're Christian, you're forced to enjoy gay marriage. You're going to like everything we say. We're going to have universal health care. We're going to crack down on your rights. You don't get freedom of speech. You don't have First Amendment protection. You don't have due process protection. You don't have the right to bear arms. You have no rights. We are your God, and the government is in charge, and you're a bunch of plebes. That's where we're going. The book 1984 said, hey, listen, if you can control the narrative, you can control the future. If you can control the narrative, sometimes you have to destroy the past, basically, is what they're talking about. Tearing down all these statues. The book 1984 says, basically that, they have to destroy the past. And if they're destroying the past, destroying the past is the road to totalitarianism. That's where we are. So when Donald Trump said, basically it was both sides, and he doubled down again and said, it was both sides. He's absolutely right. It was both sides. Then you had in an unguarded moment, a New York Times reporter tweeted out this, on the 12th of August, that the hard left seemed hate-filled as the alt-right. I saw club-wielding Antifa beating a white nationalist and being led out of the park. This was Cheryl Gay Stolberg of the New York Times. It was a tweet on 8/12/17. She was skewered by the Antifa Black Lives Matter people, where she was, basically cowered into apologizing for reporting the truth. That is the truth. But see, you didn't see that on NBC, ABC, CNN. Oh, no, just the Nazis, they're evil and they're nasty. They are evil and they are nasty and they are repugnant. But so is Antifa. So is Black Lives Matter. So are paid protesters. Paid protesters, that's right. And the power of the media, and I've told you this before, and this is their power. This is why they're so angry, because people don't believe them anymore. You have to be a fair arbiter of the truth. You have to tell both sides of the story. My little story about the First Amendment. So in 1990, we'll fast forward 13 years from the Klan Nazi shooting the CWP, the Communist Workers' Party people who came with guns to their protest. But fast forward 13 years to 1992. I'm in the newsroom of WFMY-TV, CBS affiliate. I got a news director. It's about 9:10 in the morning. We're running down the day's stories. The news director says, "Oh, the Klan is marching in Lexington, North Carolina, in the market." And Greg Hunter, I want you to go do a story on that. We want you to do a story on that. And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." My boss looked at me. Listen, there's nothing about those people, I said to him and everybody in the newsroom, that I agree with. They are repugnant people, the Klan. I don't want anything to do with them. I mean, they're racist, they're nasty. I don't want anything to do with them. My boss looked at me in front of everybody and said, "Oh, really? Well, you're going, because you need a lesson in the First Amendment." And for everybody here, he says, the First Amendment doesn't protect the speech you love. It protects the speech you hate. You're going, and you better have my lead story at 6 o'clock. You're going. And I went. In other words, if I didn't have his lead story, I was going to get canned. I didn't want to go, but I went. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I go down to Lexington, North Carolina. There's about 2 or 3 dozen people. I'm watching them line up, so I'm looking in the background. We're shooting video and whatever. There's no guns. There's no shields or spears or helmets or clubs or pepper spray or bottles of urine or any of the other stuff you saw at Charlottesville. They're getting ready to march out. They do the streets lined with about 2/3 African Americans, 1/3 white people, and they're on the sidewalk, and the police are every 50 feet or something like that, and they're there, and they start their march with their Confederate flags. Some of them have their hoods on, some of them have the hoods back, and they got their flags, and they're hollering out, "I hate N-word, I hate," looking right at me, "I hate N-word, I hate you." And the other people, "I hate you too, man." But let me tell you something. This was an amazing thing. This is the nuts and bolts of my story. Was no matter how repugnant these people were, no matter what happened, everybody kept their cool. No shots fired. Nobody spit on anybody. Nobody, tried to hit anybody or throw a rock at anybody. It went on for about 45 minutes or an hour. Ended up at the courthouse. Everybody went home. That was my story. Despite the fact these are repugnant people, and I'm not patting the Klan on the back. I'm just saying that, hey, there were no paid protesters. There was nobody paid to organize this rally or anything like that. Everybody kept their cool, which was a relief, considering what happened 13 years ago at the Klan Nazi German workers shootout, where 5 killed and 10 wounded. Relief. That was the story. And I told an accurate story, and these guys in the media today, they don't tell accurate stories. And what is that? That is, when you have a one-sided view, it's propaganda. You're no longer the news. And I have the definition of propaganda, and I want you to breathe this in, folks. This is the Oxford Dictionary definition of propaganda: information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. When I was complaining about the news article to the editor today, I said, you guys ought to print up the definition of propaganda And you ought to pass it around and just ask yourself, does this apply to you? You leave out a major fact to rewrite history and the Klan Nazi CWP shootout where the Communist Workers' Party brings guns to the peaceful counter rally, and the Klan goes to their trunk and gets out their firepower, and you leave out the fact that they brought guns, the other side brought guns. How in the world could they have gotten acquitted? How did they murder 5 people and kill 10 and get acquitted? You left that out? He said, well, that's just your opinion. No, that's not my opinion. That's a major fact you let out. You left out. They were rewriting history. They were playing the victim card. Oh, the Germans the Communist Workers' Party, the counter-protesters were just innocent victims. No. Just like Charlotte. There were not innocent victims in Charlotte. If you saw shields and helmets and bottles on your side and on the other side, and you saw sticks and clubs and bats and pepper spray, you should have ran, because there was no way that was going to end up peaceful. And the reporter should have covered both sides that way. That was fair. That's what Donald Trump, both sides, that's what he said. Both sides were to blame. And a New York Times reporter in an unguarded moment did back him up. And then there's this, thing. It's Charlottesville. And then there's this thing. This guy right here. Jason Kessler. He was the organizer on the Klan side of Charlottesville, the Charlottesville deal. Jason Kessler. Did you know he was a part of the Obama-run Occupy Wall Street movement? He's bragged about being a paid provocateur, quote-unquote, paid provocateur. And what happened to the Occupy Wall Street movement? I mean, aren't those people on Wall Street greedier than ever with one all-time high after another? Oh, no, they found a new counter-protest group, the Antifa, or the Black Lives Matter, or the Black Lives Don't Matter, because they sure don't matter in Chicago. They only matter if we can make hay against Whitey and now racist Donald Trump, quote-unquote, which is ridiculous. I mean, here we have Donald Trump, who was running in the Reform Party in 2000, and there's all kinds of video of Donald Trump denouncing racism, and he's sitting there talking to the Today Show saying, well, now we find out David Duke is in the Reform Party. He's a bigot and a racist. I don't want anything to do with that. And, NBC, of all networks, NBC calling Donald Trump a racist, they're on MSNBC and Joe Scarborough, and he's a racist. He's pandering to the really? So let me get this straight, Joey, and MSNBC and the rest of you guys over there at NBC News, the propagandists at NBC News. So you had Donald Trump as a star of your network on a top related, one of the top reality shows ever in The Apprentice for what, a decade? And you were harboring a KKK Nazi racist? Really? It's total BS. And the deep state and the left and the Rhino Republicans, these are all people who I think are guilty of crime and treason and all kinds of things. Graft, whatever. They want the swamp to stay deep and muddy, and they love it. And they don't like Donald Trump. And, they're out to do anything they can. And speaking of paid protesters, Antifa. So this is the Beverly Hills Antifa. This is 4/3/17. There's video on this. I put a InfoWars story. They got the only copy of the video that works that the Beverly Hills Antifa tweeted out. And it's the chant of George Soros, pay us our money. George Soros, pay us our money. It's in the beginning of the InfoWars piece that I'm going to put on there talking about the paid pro. But you see it for yourself. If that isn't confirmation of paid protesters by George Soros, the people that he's paying that are mad that they haven't gotten their money yet, I don't know what is. Is that a real protest or is that paid opposition? The other thing, as I've told you about tearing down these statues, here we have in North Carolina, they tore down this Confederate statue that has been up since 1925. It's a national historic treasure that's made out of brass that they tore down. They have arrested the person leading this teardown of this thing, who is a pro-North Korean Marxist. That's just what we're talking about. These are communists. Oh, incidentally, see that right there? workers.org, www.workers.org. That's communists. You're going to see their website, which is, open borders and capitalism isn't working and we want workers' rights and we're the Workers' Party. This is remember the Communist Workers' Party? You remember the Nazis? Remember who they are? The National Socialist German Workers' Party. Look, the Democrats own slavery, boys and girls. They want to tear down these Confederate monuments. Hey, listen, the people who were the slavers were the Democrats. It was the party of Lincoln, the Republicans, that put an end to it. And here our idiot governor, Roy Cooper, who says, we shouldn't have monuments that are a tribute to slavery in the Civil War. Are you an idiot? The Civil War was not fought over slavery. Otherwise, Lincoln wouldn't have waited 2 years after the Civil War started in 1863 to put out the Emancipation Proclamation that freed the slaves. He would have freed them right at the beginning if it was all about slavery. It wasn't. It was about the United States splitting. It was about commerce. It was about states' rights. It was a small part about slavery, which was nearly an afterthought, I hate to say, to the governor here. But yes, he wants to with his, now they have a nice phony thing here, to tear down the monuments, to erase our past. They want to erase the past. I mean, read the book 1984. Control the narrative, erase the past, change every date, change every story to fit your narrative. That's what the Nazis were doing with burning books. That's what you heard about all the Nazi book burning in the 30s. They were controlling the narrative. And here we have the governor, and the Democrats don't have a single issue that they can point to that is going to help Americans get better jobs, send their kids to college, live better, make more money, progress themselves, in society and up the ladder. And they don't have any of that. They have the new deal, the new super improved deal. What is it? It's just more of what didn't work in the past. Nancy Pelosi and Schumer out with that, the new deal, the new super duper deal. They don't have a single idea. Here's their idea. Hey, the Republicans are racist. Donald Trump is a racist. They'll lie about that. And all these, Confederate monuments need to come down. And by the way, while we're at it, the Jefferson Memorial ought to be torn down. He was a slave owner. The Washington Monument ought to be torn down. He owned slaves too. I mean, they have this preacher up in Chicago wanting to tear down all the monuments up there. I mean, unbelievable. Why? Why do they want to tear down all these? Well, they want to erase the past. They want to go after the Constitution. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they're just a bunch of racists. Let's tear up that Constitution. You don't need any rights. I mean, remember Hillary Clinton? I mean, she went on with Chris Wallace, one of the only interviews she did. And here she is. I think there are limits to the Second Amendment. And I think there are limits to the First. Oh! That's what we're talking about. She was the de facto leader of the party at the time, basically, her and Obama. You don't think they talked about that? They want to suppress free speech. They're doing that now. They're saying any hate speech by the Klan, and we need to suppress that. That shouldn't be covered by the Constitution. Yes, it is covered by the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't preserve speech you love. It preserves speech you hate. And who is the arbiter of what is acceptable speech? And by the way, yes, the Nazis and the Klan are evil, and they lynched people, and they killed millions of people. Hey, listen, the communists, the Marxists in this world killed millions of people as well. Stalin, Pol Pot, Marxist, communists killed, murdered, sent to gulags, millions of people. And that's what we're talking about. That's what the Democratic Party's turned into. The communists, the Marxists, they like to call themselves progressive because they're progressing towards taking away all your rights. And then you have people like this, who's a big Democrat, Larry. They don't care what they have to say. They're freaking out. This whole Mueller thing isn't working out. Mueller won't even touch the only piece of evidence, the servers. That ain't working out. I doubt if this Trump's a racist is going to work out when there's, 30 years of videotape, him calling David Duke a bigot and a racist, and him not having any of that. and until he becomes a thorn in their side. Then they got to have an issue. He's a racist. Then you have Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary, the liar that he is. Trump is endorsing white supremacists. That's a lie. And that's how supporters can face their children. How could you face your children by pushing communism and wanting to destroy the Constitution? That's what the end game is here, folks. They want to destroy the Constitution. They want a totalitarian society. The God is the government. That's what the God wants to be. You don't get to speak out against anything that they like. And you better love what they like. You better love little girls in restroom with grown men. You better love that. And if you don't, you're creepy. You better love the whole transgender thing. You better love that. You better love abortion. You better love baby killing because, now they got free baby killing up in Oregon and the governor just signed it. Free baby killing for everybody, even illegal aliens. You better love all that. You better love everything about what they're doing. You better love taking away, suppressing free speech. You better love that the fact that they're going to prove what speech is acceptable. That's where we're going, folks. They're going after the founders. They're going after the Confederates. That's one thing. Again, racing our history. Then going after the founders. They're just a bunch of racists. We don't need that Constitution either. Let's rewrite it. I'm telling you, folks, it's awful. Another big thing that they're freaked out about, the Democrats, is the 2018 elections. Again, tell me one policy that they have that's going to be a good policy. I mean, Bernie Sanders, the independent, wants to have a single-payer health care. That's some more communism. He's a communist. That's some more freedom-taking, government-in-your-affairs stuff. Tell me one thing other than the new super-duper New Deal, like a bridge. We're building bridges. What does that mean, you're building bridges? Well, the New Deal. The new scam. The new con, the new scam, and that's laced with Trump's a racist, and we're gonna tear down all the monuments who have the slaveholders, and we're gonna rewrite the Constitution, and they're racist. Not a single idea. And would that scare you if you were a U.S. senator and you were a Democrat? And I'll tell you why. Every 6 years, the Senate, is up for 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election. In the House, it's every 2 years, everybody in the House is up for re-election. But in the Senate, it's 6 years, 1/3, 6 years, the next third, 6 years, another. Well, in this third of the U.S. Senate up for re-election, and I just put this out, upcoming elections, 2018, here's the Senate. This is the Democrats. 23 are up for re-election. This is the independents, people like Bernie Sanders, who the independents caucus and vote Democrats. So basically they're Democrats. And the Republicans have 9 up. Add it all up and you have 25 Dems up for re-election in 2018. And they don't have a single idea to make your life better other than Trump and all the Republicans are racist. Trump endorses racism, which he doesn't, which he didn't. A phony issue for idea-less people that don't have a real issue, so they're going to get their mainstream media propaganda buddies and everybody else to be quoted saying that Trump and the Republicans are racist. They're also going to try to censure him. The Democrats are going to censure Donald Trump. The business leaders have left him, and half those people, like he said, are either making stuff abroad or they're getting billions of dollars like Elon Musk and government largeness, where he couldn't have his company without the billions of dollars the Obama administration gave him. That's going away. And then the other CEOs are just afraid the propaganda media is going to come after them and destroy their profits and destroy their business. So Trump shut the whole thing down. So instead of trying to get good done for America, the propaganda media is sitting there lying. I mean, Jim Acosta, who I used to work with at CNN, is really not a reporter. He just stands in front of the White House and gives his opinion, like we care. And it's some trashy opinion. But the Democrats are also freaked out about really getting creamed in the Senate. What do you bet that the Democrats won't hold all 25 of those seats? What do you bet that the only 9 Republicans who are up for re-election probably are going to hold all those seats? They're going to get more seats in the Senate, likely. Which brings me to this. So if nothing's working, and I don't think the Trump's a racist because he's not. Come on. None of his supporters believe he's a racist. None of the diamond and silk sure don't believe he's a racist, but they're trying to shut them down for, they're trying to shut their speech off by demonetizing all their videos, just like the same thing they're doing with the other people on the internet who have a conservative opinion and believe in Christ. Mark Dice is talking about how his videos are down. He's got 1 million subscribers and, millions of views. And Diamond and Silk have tons of subscribers, 2 African-American females that were on the road, with campaign stops with Trump. And, they're going after them. Wow. 2 African-American women who brought themselves up by their bootstraps and have their own enterprise and were making money with it. And what does the tolerant executives at YouTube and Google do? Demonetize them, because it's not appropriate. Because again, the thought police, the what is acceptable speech. I mean, today they're demonetizing what tomorrow, if they get control, they're going to send the federal agents there to arrest them and throw them in some jail somewhere. I mean, that's where we're headed. So it brings me to if they can't get Trump on all this other phony stuff, and it's all phony. Not like, Hillary Clinton had multiple unprotected servers with top secret information on it, covering the fact she was taking treasonous bribes in the form of donations to a global charity fraud, like the Uranium One deal, where 9 people gave her $150 million, $145 million, and 20% of our uranium production ended up in Russian hands. Or her husband doubling at about the same time his speaking fees in Russia. Nothing like that. And I think, and listen, with this Comey thing, and I'm gonna get one more thing before I finish talking about the economy, about them crashing it. The Comey thing. Listen, you know how they fired Comey, right? Remember this. I've talked about this before. They waited till he was in California for Trump to fire him. They went to his office and cleaned it out and took it to the Justice Department. And then you have Comey, who said 3 times that Donald Trump wasn't the point of investigation, and he was never pressured. He testified in the Senate for this, that nobody ever pressured him. And then he leaks out this memo after he leaves. How did he get to leave with memos from the FBI? And then all of a sudden he needs a special prosecutor. I think Comey is up to his neck in covering crime and obstruction of justice and treason. I think he's up to his neck in it. And he needs some immunity too. Or he needs Donald Trump and his entire administration knocked out of the box. But I think if none of this works, and none of it has worked, and none of it is working, even big publications like The Nation, the left alt, wildly liberal, Marxist, communist, The Nation, has come out with a piece saying that they don't think there's any Trump collusion. They think they still think Hillary got screwed, but they don't think there's any Trump-Russian collusion. They think it was an inside job where a staffer leaked out information because they were upset because the Democrats were cheating to get Hillary Clinton to win the primary for the Democrats. Like Seth Rich may have, or some staffer may have leaked the information. As Julian Assange has said, it didn't come from the Russians. Even The Nation has surmised it was an inside job at the DNC. And maybe another reason why they won't give up those servers, or they're in 1 million pieces, or they've been run over by a caterpillar, a bulldozer. I don't know. But I think if nothing works, and me and Mannarino have talked about this, I think they'll crash the economy. They don't have to raise the interest rates much to crash the economy. Or it could crash on its own. I mean, we have high debt levels. We have super high stock levels. We have, a lot of, we have currency problems. We have a lot of moving parts to the global economy. We have trillions of dollars in derivatives. Somebody could zig when they zagged, and the whole thing could go down, or somebody could wake up like Ray Dalio and go one morning and go, I'm out, and take his $160 billion portfolio and leave and get out. Incidentally, he's saying to buy gold. But Mannarino was talking about the Fed meeting, and he says, listen, man, they're going to continue to melt the dollar. And this is his summation of what happened in the Fed meeting. I talked to him before I came on the air. He says, Fed's going to continue to melt the dollar, and everything else is going to inflate up. It'll take more of those melted dollars to buy everything, and the stock market will continue. until it doesn't. And he says, I still say, Mannarino, he says, look for trouble in the bond market that'll tip it off. There you go. In the end, if they can't get him, they'll have to crash the economy sooner than later. I don't know. I just be careful, be wary. I mean, things are. They want to remove the deep state, the Democrats, the Antifa, the George Soros of the world who are paying for the Antifa or the Instupa or whatever you want to call it. They want him out of office. There's a lot of reasons why they want the mud, the swamp to stay deep and muddy. They want to keep sucking the blood out of America. There are a lot of people have committed crime and treason, and Donald Trump hasn't. And, the longer he stays in power, the more the Jeff Sessions Justice Department can dig. They just lost a top FBI investigator from the Mueller unit. Nobody knows why. I'm telling you, folks, there's so many risks, both economic and political. And listen, final thing, the debt ceiling is not a done deal. I mean, even Ray Dalio is saying, I don't know if they're going to get the debt ceiling done. North Korea is a problem. The debt ceiling is a problem. There's lots of problems, folks. Iran could back out of the non-nuclear deal, the one that nobody signed. We gave them, $150 billion. Nobody signed anything. No paperwork. Nobody signed anything. They're going to back out of that wake, not graft, the payoff. This is called the payoff because a lot of people probably made money on that. But Mannarino says the Fed meeting, appears to him they're going to melt the dollar and melt everything up and melt the dollar down. That's what it is going to do. Listen, that's the way I see it. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog. Oh, one last thing. I had trouble with my site. It went down for about 12 hours. And I don't like to talk about what goes on in the back end because I don't want to give out information, and I certainly don't want to invite people to come after me. I'm looking for something. Hold on. So I just wanted to tell you that I am back up. I had one heck of a long day on Wednesday, but I'm back up, and there's still some glitches in the system. Try to go to the HTTPS USAWatchdog.com. Put that in your browser if you're having trouble. HTTPS USAWatchdog.com. Put that in the browser. You'll go right to the site. And I've got some other glitches that are being worked on, and hopefully the site will get stronger. Is right now stronger, and is going to get better. But I want to just close again with simply this. Don't be freaked out by this news, folks. Pray for the president. I mean, he's under attack by evil. There is no doubt about it. Pray for the president. This is a fight about good and evil. And don't think prayer doesn't work. And I just want to bring this up to you. This is what I was looking for. Matthew 28:18. This is after the resurrection. Please take this in, folks. Then Jesus came to them and said, he's talking about the apostles, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. All. Not some. Not I'm going to make a deal. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. There is no way Donald Trump got the most powerful political job in the world without the approval of Jesus Christ. No way. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your comments and your donations. That helps us out. Remember, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not. God the Father and His Son Jesus Christ are firmly in charge. Fear not.